Okay, campers, welcome back to video 7B of this series where I'll show you how to create an interactive map using the two LiDAR-derived vegetation maps of Tuolumne County. So first we want to open Experience Builder, and so in your Columbia College dashboard, either from your contents or really anywhere there, go to these square dots here and hit the drop down and open Experience Builder. And then you'll come to your table of contents, and you guys probably don't have anything there because you haven't done anything yet. So next go to Create New, and we'll create a new story map or interactive map or whatever we'd want to do, and in this case a interactive map. And then you're presented with templates of the various types of maps and how they're laid out. And that's many of them are the same as in the classic ArcGIS map creation tool. And so if you're familiar with some of those, they're all right here too. In our case, we're just going to use the blank full screen, and so use that and create. And for you guys, you'll get a splash screen offering you a quick tour of the layout of the tools and everything. And so I'd go through that. It's just, 3 or 4 screens and just shows you where everything is. I'll do the same here though. So after you've used some of the tools, so here's your widget tools and the plus sign here. That'll insert some of your widget tools. Here's the pages you create right here. And here are the data you have access to, and here are the styles and colors. So right now, obviously, we're in the widget tool, and one of the first things we're going to want to do is create a box to put our map in. Widget, and pull that over, and it'll create a space, a box for the first map we'll put in here. And it defaults to the world map, and let's just drag it a little over to the left there and resize it. We'll want the full screen here, so just use the bars on the left and the corners and resize it. Okay, so that's just the default map, and we're going to want to put in our own LiDAR-based maps. So go ahead and over in the right here in Content, choose Select Map, and there's nothing in our data box here, so go on down to Add New Data. So then you come to your data choices here, and just as in Arc Online, you've got My Content, My Groups, My Organization, ArcGIS Online, and Living Atlas to search. And I'm going to, because there's people who are not in this class who might be watching the video, so I'm going to go to ArcGIS Online. The rest of you can just use My Organization and you'd search locally, but I'll give you the name for the 2 files that are publicly posted from Columbia College. So go over to Arc Online, and the actual name for it, and I just found this out, and I'm going to paste it in here, and I'll write it again in the liner notes here. But it's a map of point cloud density in 1 to 4 meter range, indicating fuel density. A great title. In any event, it comes up, and so you click that, and it marks it. And next, we'll want the 3D map. That's the 2D one. So we go to Web Scene. And in Arc Online, we'll actually look for the same file name in Scene, because I just used that to create a web scene directly from that map. And so the title given here is LiDAR derived fuel density, but the search title name is the original name of the file. So go ahead and mark that. And so now down here on the lower right, we've got 2 selected, and just click Done. And now under your Select Data tab, go ahead and click on each one, and you've highlighted them both and included them in your map set here. And so you can X out of that. And so now on our first page here, we can just choose either one here. So now you've got them both chosen, and they show up as the maps available to you, and you can just switch back and forth between the two. But you know, as I think this over, I just want to use the 2D one. And now let's go to your pages that you've got built, and let's rename page 1 to Moke Fire Veg Density 2D. And it's pretty important to name each page because we'll be using that later when you want to choose how they'll be interactive. And the same with map 1. Let's rename that Veg Density 2D. And in the great scheme of things, we really didn't have to add the 3D one here, but it's there. We might have a need for it later, so no problem. So now let's add a second page, and up here it's Add Page, and you just add, and we're going to have the same template choices. So for this, we'll just add a blank full screen, and let's name that Mokefire Veg 3D. And let's drag a map into it. And select the map, and we already have them here as choices. So hover over them, and so that one's 2D, so we want the 3D one, and click on that. And now let's resize it so it fills the whole box there. And now we can X out. And once we did that, we actually have a little more real estate there, so let's just go ahead and do that. And now let's save, because you want to save early and often once you're pretty sure of yourself. And back to pages, let's change the map here. Rename Veg Density 3D. And now let's go back to page 1, and we're going to want to put in a header. So then back to our widgets, and click outside here. We actually don't need a widget. So down here on the right, there's header, and that adds a header up here. Go ahead and we'll edit. And now let's go over here, and we're going to add a text box. You have to sort of wiggle it around. It tells you where to go. And click inside that, and let's call this Mokefire Vegetation Density. Did I spell that right? Yeah, I think so. And so let's hold with that. We can always edit it later. Although we do want to move it around. Let's move it here. And you can also do things like horizontal center and vertical center. Yeah, that's pretty close. But you can fool around, or you can just do it hand-eye. And then over here on the right, you can choose different fonts and sizes. But we also want this to work on phones and tablets, so we actually don't want to get too big here. So let's go with that for the moment. You know, we're just doing a draft and outlining stuff. Let's go back to pages, go to our next one, And we're going to do the same thing there. We're going to turn on the header and notice that it has the same header. Fairly cool. And let's resize the map up to the bottom of the header. Okay, so now we have two pages. We have a 2D view and a 3D view. And what I'm going to do is, you know, when you're working with Arc, Esri stuff, there's a lot of stuff you can do. And so I'm doing this more as an example of what you can do, and I'm not decided yet on whether it's really useful. And I'll show you a couple of things that do the same thing, and you guys can decide if in your life they're useful. But what we're going to do is we are going to have our 2D map such that you can zoom and move around on it, and it'll be reflected on the 3D map. So in a sense, you're using this as your navigation tool, and 3D is actually kind of sometimes hard to navigate in until you get used to it. And you know, you can, as you're rotating or flipping around or something like that, you can actually just go off into outer space and completely lose the map. So it's actually kind of useful to have a 2D navigation where it's harder to get lost. And notice here, we've got the outline of the smoke fire and the vegetation density, and the same here, only in 3D. Okay, so once again, let's just resize a little bit here. So to build the relationship of one to the other, we go over here to Actions, and we add a trigger. So, you know, if you do X, Y will happen, is what a trigger does. It tells Y what to do. So in this case, we'll change the zoom level of the 2D map, and it'll act on the 3D map and have it mirror it. So you go ahead, add trigger, and you want to do an extent change, and you want to do it on your 3D map. And you want it to zoom to, you could have it pan to, but we want to zoom, and there you go. So to test it out, you want to save. We think we have it right. We don't always. And then we go to live view. So this converts it to the actual app. And so we're zoomed out. So let's zoom in a little bit and go to our 3D one, and notice that it zooms right in. And back again, zoom out, and go to our 3D view, and it zooms out. So it's nice to have successes. This doesn't always work because it's easy to click the wrong thing. So we're doing well. Okay, now, and here's a mistake you'll undoubtedly make, although maybe you guys are more with it than I am. Make sure when you go back into editing mode that you go out of live view, because it won't work. If you try and edit, it won't work. Although it'll actually give you a pop-up that says you're in live view, but unclick live view there. Now we're back in edit mode. And now we're going to do the same thing in a third page, but they're going to be side by side. So we're going to call this smoke fire 2D and 3D. So they'll be side by side. And same thing, go here. Let's add a map. Now this time we're going to size it roughly half. Although if you have a navigation map, you might just want a smaller one as an inset, but you guys can decide on that. I'm just showing you what's possible here, but we'll make them the equal size here, and then resize so they're roughly equal. You know, once again, I'm just showing you guys, you know, how to do a workflow. Okay, then click outside the map. Let's add our header. Just turn on the header here. And notice it comes up with the same title. And if you want to go in to edit the header, you can. But for the moment, we'll leave it as is. And so let's make the left-hand map our 2D map. We go once again to Select Map and hover. Make sure you get the 2D LiDAR density and change that. And now let's do the same thing on the other one. Select map, and we'll take the 3D one and X out of this. And now we can resize here, bring it up. And one thing I haven't mentioned is on each map, right now we have the 2D map highlighted. So here are the tools we can add, and it's the same as the widgets on the classic version. So we might want to give the ability to put another base map, although let's not do that. But let's put a measurement tool, and let's put a scale bar. So notice the measurement tool shows up here, and the scale bar is down here. But you can add other, navigation is already on, and I'll show you that when we actually go to live view. And let's do the same for a base map. Oh, and let's add layers, because this allows us to turn on and off. If we want to turn off the LiDAR because it's too busy, or the fire or whatever, we can turn those on and off. And let's do that here too, layers. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to go through the same process where we'll create an action that will focus the 3D map depending on how we locate the 2D map, and then we'll also reverse it. You can do both at the same time. So from the 2D map, with it highlighted here, selected, go to Action, Add Trigger, Extent Change, and your target. And your target, you know what I didn't do here? It says Map 2. So let's rename Maps 1 and 2. So rename, so let's call this is page 3. So why don't we go page 3, 2D. And the next one we'll rename to page 3, 3D. And that way we know what our targets and sources are. And we should have done that in these earlier ones, but just keep that in mind. This allows us to remember what's where. Add trigger, extent change, and we want to have it act. The target will be the 3D map. And so that's over here. Here's what it's acting on, and you want it to be an extent change, and we want it to zoom to. So incidentally, if you make a mistake, and I've done this early and often, go ahead and you can just zap that and start over until you get it right. So that happens quite often. Don't worry about a thing. So now let's see if we did it right. Let's save. Let's go to live view. And so remember, the 2D is acting on the 3D. So let's zoom in, and it zooms in. Let's bring it down, and it's down. Okay, so that's pretty cool, and that's probably more useful than pages 1 and 2. But I just want to see I want you guys to see that you can do this. Now we're going to do the same thing and have the 3D one act on the 2D one, just to show you that we can do it all here. So let's click out of live view, highlight the 3D map, add a trigger. Okay, so now we're going to have the 3D map. We navigate on that and have it be reflected in the 2D map. And as it turns out, I already have done that, so I'll X that out. Now we add a trigger. We're going to want to do the same thing, extent change. We're going to want it to work on the 2D map. That'll be our target to select. And we're going to want to zoom to. And the same, save, go to live view, and let's once again hope it works. Yay us. You know, when you wrestle with this stuff a lot, you're pretty excited when it works. Notice that it goes off screen here. And on the 3D view, you know, I'm right clicking here, and that becomes my navigation. But you can also have the rotate tools here. So you can just do that. So I clicked on that. It's now the dominant tool. I'm now left clicking, and you can pan with that. And if you do get lost, you have the default map view, which is reflected on how you set up your web map. And so once you save your original web map, that's your default map view. Okay, so I think, oh, we have one more fun thing to do here. Let's go back to page 1, and we're going to add, oops, we're going to select, we're going to get out of live view. We're going to edit the header, and then we're going to go into our widgets, and we're going to add a menu to the top header bar there, and just drag that in, and resize it so all 3 pages show up. And that might be truncated if we try and look on it on a phone, or add it on a phone or a tablet. And those don't show up too great. I chose blue as the background here, so I'm going to go to Style, and even though it's going to clash, I'm going to create a white background here. I don't recommend this. You want all the colors to balance and make sense. But let's just do that for a moment so you guys can see it. And let's stretch it out a little more. I'm doing this on a full-size screen, so it's all there. And then just click to get out of it. And there we go. I think we'll save that. So at this point, you can just work on the header and the fill. His header is here, of course, the height and the fill. So we just accepted the defaults, but you might, let's, I don't know, go for light green. Sure, that might work better. And then let's see if that works for the let's just do the white green here, light green. Yeah, sure, let's go with that. And so you can also change things like the page you're on. So notice that that's in blue and the other 2 are in black. So if you go down here to Advanced from within the Content tab, you can play around with the regular and say the selected, the background here, or the border, and just fool around with that stuff to get an idea of what it does. You may not want the defaults, but we'll stick with the defaults for the moment. And of course, I've made that a lighter green, but you know what I'm getting at here is you can fiddle around with this stuff endlessly, and that's part of the cartography, you know, how something looks. And this would not pass an advanced cartography class, but for our purposes, we'll go with it. So once again, let's save, and it shows that you know, if you guys come even close on any of this, I'm pretty flexible. This is new stuff, and I think this particular exercise is pretty straightforward, so you should be able to do it. But if you do have problems, send me a note. The next exercise, the ESRI training video, is a little more difficult, and I will have some notes about that in the assignment document that I send out. So finally, let's go through and see if everything works. We'll go to Live View, and let's go to the first page. Let's zoom out. Let's see if that's reflected in the next page. And the next page here, we zoom in or zoom out here, and zoom in here. And so that all works. And then you can also navigate from here. So that'll take us to page 2, and this will take us back to page 1. And once again, we've named them such that we know what they are. And you can do the same things with your text boxes and your menus to tell you which is which if you have more than one. Okay, out of live view. And the last thing we would do, notice over here, it's untitled experience. So let's call it Smoke, Fire, LiDAR, Vegetation Map. And so there's our name. And the last save. Oh, that doesn't have to be saved, I guess. You can lock the layout, so if others are fooling around, you don't want them to mess it up. Or if you're doing things, you want to lock it. And then finally, you can publish it. So let's do that. And it shows as published. And so for that, go into your contents. And it didn't ask us for a folder to save to, but it shows up as the most recent map you've done. And right now, only the owner, it's shared only with the owner. So let's change that, and let's just keep this within the organization. So let's just share it within the organization. But you can also, of course, do it with the public. And then save. And accepted that, so there was nothing within any of the layers of that map that didn't match just saving it within the organization. If any of the feature classes of that map had, say, only been shared to an owner, it would have warned you that was the case. And if your permissions are set high enough, you could have reset those permissions. So for instance, if you had a feature class that you didn't change to group or everyone public, then it would have changed it if you were the owner. And next, let's move this to your Experience Builder folder. Highlight that, and I'd selected Move there, and then Save. So that moves it to Experience Builder just to keep everything together. And there it is. Okay, so I hope all that makes sense. And this is video 7B of 2. One was the intro, and this is the step-by-step, obviously. And as always, send me a note if you have trouble. I like to think this is pretty straightforward. This is brand new, so also send me a note if you find it too difficult, and that'll help me change it for next year. Okay, thanks a lot. We'll move on next to Experience Builder and the ESRI training video.